Hi, I'm Daniel Mateola, and this is Eyesight, Insight, and Foresight. In the next couple of videos I'm going to bring to you, I have chosen the subject spiritual deafness and blindness. And first I want to talk to you on a subject that I've given an interesting title, Balaam chooses deafness. You think, what on earth is that all about? Well, I want to ask you this question. Have you dealt with the issue of the lust of your eyes, the lust of your flesh, and the pride of life? Because if you haven't, it can cost you your ability to hear clearly. It can lead to spiritual deafness. You know, recently I was reading Numbers chapter 22, the story of Balak, the king of Peor, the king of Moab, and the priest by the name Balaam. Some of you may be very familiar with that, but it's found in the 22nd chapter of the book of Numbers. And if I were to read from verses 25 to 22, you will see the entire story, but I'm not going to read all of it to you. Now, just to give you a bit of a picture of what went on, Balak is the king of Moab. He notices that the children of Israel had moved close to where his land was. And somehow, because of knowing of what God had done for the children of Israel in terms of past victories for the battles they had fought, he decided that he was going to have them cursed. He knew that if this people can be cursed, he would stand a better chance of winning victory over them. So he goes to hire a priest by the name Balaam, and he sent a message to Balaam to say, curse this people. Now, interestingly, you'll find out that in the verses of this chapter 22, the Bible said that this guy called Balaam went to God and asked God, what do I do? Because I've been asked to come and curse a people. Let me read a few verses to you. Starting from verse 9, the Bible said, then God came to Balaam and said, who are these men who are with you? And Balaam said to God, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, had sent to me, saying, look, a people have come out of Egypt, and they cover the face of the earth. Come now, curse them for me. Perhaps I should be able to overpower them and drive them out. And verse 12 says, and God said to Balaam, you shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. I'm going to read that 12th verse to you again, very significant. He said, you shall not go with them. This is the words of God. God said to Balaam, you shall not go with them, and you shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. Now, so Balaam rose in the morning and said to the prince of Balak, go back to your land, for the Lord has refused to give me permission to go with you. Now, the story goes on to say that these people went back to the king Balak, and Balak now sent a more honorable envoy, this time around telling them to tell Balaam that he would greatly honor him. In other words, there's some goodies, there's some benefits that are going to come if you would change your mind and come with us. Now, interestingly enough, in verse 18, the Bible said, and Balaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, well, if Balak was to give me a house full of silver and gold, I will not go beyond the word of the Lord. Now, therefore, please stay the night, that I may know what more the Lord will say to me. Verse 20, and God came to Balaam at night and said to him, if the men come to call you, rise up and go with them, but only the word which I speak to you, that you shall do. So Balaam rose in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the prince of Moab. Now listen to verse 22 very carefully. Then God's anger was aroused because he went. Ladies and gentlemen, there's some important truths that you need to notice here. Number one, Balaam had the ability to hear God's voice. He had a relationship with God, so he had the ability to hear God's voice. Number two, Balaam had heard clearly God's instruction, and it was simply, do not go with them and do not curse this people, because they are blessed. So here is my big question. Then why did Balaam entertain them the second time? Why did Balaam go back to God to go ask God if he could go with the people? Was God not clear the first time? I dare to say to you, and this is just exactly how the Spirit of the Lord laid this upon my heart, that the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. You know that stuff that is documented in 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 to 17, particularly verse 16, that talks about those three issues of this world, the things of this world, what this world has to offer. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. They can lead to spiritual deafness. I believe that somehow just hearing what these princes had come back to say that Balak will do for Balaam was what affected Balaam's heart. What he heard these people say now became an impression in his heart that made him go back to God to say to God, can I go with them? And interestingly enough, it sounded like God had given him permission to go, but don't curse the people. But then the next verse said, but God's anger was aroused, meaning God actually didn't want him to go. Ladies and gentlemen, be careful about the lust that you permit, because it can actually lead to deafness. You can get to the place where you're no longer hearing God correctly, or should I put it this way, where you hear God, but choose not to hear him. You heard him, but then you go back and take an action that made it sound as if you didn't hear him. I call it spiritual deafness. You don't want to do that. So if you're one of those people that just this little that I've shared has convicted you, that maybe you're not being very obedient to God, and there are times when God has said something to you and you've gone back, almost like trying to get another opinion, maybe you are now outside of the will of God, like Balaam found himself outside of the will of God. I call it spiritual deafness. Please don't practice spiritual deafness. Hear God clearly the first time and go ahead and obey him. Once again, my name is Daniel Mateola, and that was my nugget of eyesight, insight, and foresight. God bless you.